How do we begin to make sense of where the stars are currently? In the grand scope of things, are we coming out of this slump? Is this more of the same? It's really hard to know when you look at some of the confusing data that we're getting, right? We've won four of our last five, but not in a convincing way outside of the Boston victory, right? Two of those, we played three games against several of the absolute worst teams in the league in Columbus and in the St. Louis Blues. And we lost to Columbus Blue Jackets. We barely beat the Blues twice, barely. And then in this game against the Knights they had lost four of five coming into the night, and now after losing last night, five of six, we blow two three-goal leads in the third period in a row. That probably hasn't happened much in the history of this sport. So there's some good things, right? We scored we got the first goal in four of those five games here, coming out of the dire straits of the prior 12 game slump that we were on. And when you look at the numbers, you can see that there's been an improvement. We've got a 15% improvement in shot share in the last five versus the previous 12. Even strength in the last five plus one, so pretty flat line there, versus the previous 12 where we were a negative four. The biggest improvement has been in special teams, where in the previous 12 we were at a 17% power play percentage, and in the last five we're at a 40% power play, which at face value you like it, but you know it's not sustainable, right? No team sustains 40%. Even when we were on our torrid pace, historical pace, throughout a big portion of the season before the slump, we were still only in the low 30s. So you know that that's going to regress to the mean. And when your even strength is pretty much even, just a little bit of a drop in your power play, and those games that we're barely winning, we're now barely losing. So the penalty kill has shown a huge improvement, 67% in the 12 game slump. In the last five, 91% on the penalty kill. So there's some good things that are here, and maybe there's some things that we can build some momentum on when you get three wins in a row. Even if they're ugly wins, even if you don't like the feeling that you got after those wins, it's still a win, and it's still better than a loss, and we can still maybe build something off of this, but there's still habits that have to be broken. And I think that's why you saw the lines juggled last night. I like the lines. I want to go through those here. On the first line, they put Ritzy on there, which I love. So they had Ritzy, Wyatt, and the Messiah on the top line. Then we had Jamie Benn, Sam Steele, Matt Duchene. That's probably the line I like the least. So they broke up the AHL line, which I think was a good thing to do. And what they did was they put Bourque on a line with Hintz and Robo, and then they put Oscar Beck on a line with Foxa and Ernie, which was a real heavy line. I like that line. I like the Robo Hintz Bourque line. They had great results on the night, which we'll get into. But I think that was a good move by Gully to make those changes. So we finally outshot and outhit a team in a game. We out and we won, right? And I trust me, that's not a coincidence. So it was a more physical effort that we put forward after a 12 hit game prior against the Blues. And I think the previous game with the Blues was even worse. If I remember correctly, it was that 7 hit game. So I'm sure something was said about that to where we threw 27 hits. That's a respectable number. I mean, were they bone shattering type of hits? No. but we'll take it. We'll take that they're at least, you know, scuffing the boards a little bit. So I like that. Ernie led the way in 7 hits. Ritzy had 5, and Wyatt. This must be a mistake. Wyatt Johnston had 3 hits. So now, at the end of the day, this Stars team just cannot seem to put together three, and they don't have to be lights out periods. We had two fantastic periods, and all we needed to do was play okay in the third period. We did not, and we gave up the 3 goals, and it's just, it's just, it's so frustrating when you're. I was typing this up completely different in my notes. This is a win that we can build momentum off of. We dominated this and that. And then I had to completely redo it. It's totally reversed course. This team, if we had played another lights out period, or even, like I said, an okay period, now you're looking at, wow, we put together one hell of a game across the board, and this is how we win hockey. But now, when you win in a shootout, which, I'll tell you, if this was a playoff game, right, and we didn't have the 3-on-3 overtime and we didn't have a shootout, I wouldn't bet on them winning this game. When you lose that kind of momentum and you don't go into the skills competition like we did, I don't bet on them winning, right? And so I'm sure if I come out of this game with this mixed feeling like, oh, that win felt kind of dirty, you know that the players feel that way too. So it's anybody's guess what team we get in this next game. And so we had 23-11 block shots. So even though we outshot them, that tells me that there were a lot of shot attempts that were we weren't possessing the puck very well. That's what that tells me. Um, Turnovers were even on the game, so about even, give or take. So that's good. Um, Another thing, we didn't there is nothing that happened with Mark Stone, and when you're a team that is dialed in and sticking up for one another, somebody would have at least taken a nice little run at Stone. Somebody would have dropped the gloves with Stone. Somebody would have given him a face wash after the whistle. We saw none of that. So there's still things that this team needs to tighten up moving forward. Um, and let's see. So let's talk about the players who did well here tonight. Mavrik Bourque probably had his best game of the year. He got his he got the goal in the second period to get us up 2-1 with 11 minutes on the clock. Robo behind the net on the forecheck gets the poke check on a night to get the puck to Hintz on the other caddy corner behind the net, and then Hintz whips a pass to a wide open Bourque in the slot for the get low one timer that beat Hill against the grain. Great forecheck by this line on that shift to get that goal, and then Bourque would get another in the second period about 5 minutes later or so, where Jamie Benn misses an opportunity, collects the puck behind the net in the aftermath of that of a turnover, and then steals it back and gets it back to Jamie, who backhands a pass to Bourque for another one timer with some mustard on it for the goal. So he got two kind of similar one time goals, and Bourque has always had a good shot. I don't know where that shot has been, but it came back when we needed it last night. So good for him, and maybe he's getting getting the boat righted here. Duchene continues to have a little bit of a resurgence here. He's now got 4 goals in 3 games. He would open up the scoring for us. He had a Duchene with a nifty backhand backwards pass off of the wall to Jamie Benn, who misses the shot on a fairly open net. That's kind of a recurring theme for Jamie here last night. He's still a little snake bit. So it comes to Duchene, who pulls it off the wall again and shoots a dandy from a bad angle at the edge of the trapezoid, beating Hutton, who was pretending to be goalie in Aiden Hill's absence after he had come out to make that play on the bungled Jamie Benn show. And then Johnston would have the other goal for us in the second period, the 4-1 goal before the wheels came off. So Rantanen with the ozone face-off win gets it back to Johnston, who shoots on Hill. The rebound comes to Rantanen. I think it just kind of nicked his stick and then went to the trailing Wyatt, who ripped it high glove on Hill for the goal. If Rantanen did that as a drop pass on purpose, wouldn't surprise me, but that didn't look like what we got there. Rantanen would have 1 assist on the night. He's on a 101 point pace. He's got a 71 assist pace, which would put him above the Brad Richards Dallas record of 67. Not quite where he needs to be to beat Neil Broughton's franchise record, but we're right in the middle there, and both are definitely within reach. Heiskanen had a rough night. He had 2 mistakes that led to goals. So a little out of character for Heiskanen. Kolazar goal. This was the first mistake for him where he made a bad rim attempt with the puck that went off a night and leads to a goal. We had a similar one the other night too, where just players aren't paying attention, the situational awareness of where the opposition is. And so then we would have a goal by Smith on a 2-on-1 against Miro, and Miro just doesn't cut off the pass. That's his responsibility. The goalie's responsibility is the player with the puck and the shot, and then the defenseman responsibility is to prevent that pass to keep the goalie from having to move laterally. He did not on that one. So the defense had 0 points on the night, which is another recurring theme, that this defense is not contributing offensively, and it's been this way for a really long time. So hopefully we can get that figured out. We're not getting exactly the goaltending that we're needing from Otter right now either, who's at a .900 on the year, so fairly average. And you want a little more than average goaltending from this guy. Is he playing horribly? No, but you expect more from what many deem to be our franchise goalie here. So, another thing that the Stars need to work on is these we're losing important face-offs. And there's some nights where it's just over and over. We did it in overtime. We got away with it several times in overtime. That can kill you. One of the goals, the tying goal, was off of a face-off. The one with about a minute left or a little under, where we had a face-off on our end, and we lose the face-off, and then it went back to Marner at the point. So you have got to win these key face-offs, and we're not doing that. Something that needs to be addressed, and then we win in the shootout. Mikko Rantanen, the Messiah, with the heroic clinching goal there with his normal. He doesn't like to deke, right? He just comes in, he picks his spot, and he shoots, and he's good at it. But he does that under the glove, over the pad, and puts this game to bed. So with that win, we go on to play the Mammoth, whose only losses in the last 8 games have come to the Lightning and the Canes. So this is a big measuring stick game for the Stars. We have 2 more games before the break that I don't really put a whole lot of water on. Let's see who we play here. We play the Winnipeg Jets, who are awful this year, on Monday, and then we play St. Louis again, also awful. So, we really, at the bottom line is we are not going to have in all likelihood, unless they just absolutely beat the brakes off of these three teams, we're not going to have a really full idea of whether this team is out of this slump or not until after the Olympics. Now, the good news is, I think with the amount of players that are going to get this tune up of high level, fast play at the Olympics, all of the Finns are going to come back leveled up. Um, you know, I think that that's going to help this team a lot. Um, and then hopefully Jim Nill adds some pieces at the deadline and addresses some of the shortcomings of this team that I've discussed in the past. We need the physicality. We need a left wing. We need a right defenseman. So, um, we're I still do think that this team with the right moves can be a contender, and let's hope that we get this sorted out here in the next month or so. It's going to be exciting, and I look forward to riding along with you and giving you my 2 cents. I appreciate all y'all foilists, and you guys have a good one.